Hello everyone, Triple here, and I'm here with another season of the NNDL. It's by now, I don't know, season 7 or something, but for ease, I'm gonna call it season 2 since it's the second one I've uploaded. But the NNDL started again, which means new team, new battles, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. There's some new contenders and some old contenders, and they're gonna be very good battles. And I just kind of wanted to talk about what I drafted in this season. And there were a few rule changes. We had 120 points to draft months, which is good for like 9 to 12. Dynamax, Gigantamax was last season a big thing, which is now gone. Z's aren't allowed. And for the rest, it's pretty much standard draft rules. And I honestly didn't go into this with a big plan or anything. So I just kind of went with whatever looked good. I wanted to get Darmanitan at first, Galarian Darmanitan, which was allowed. But the reason I got it was Zen mode, and the patch note said Zen mode wasn't allowed in draft, which immediately turned me away. So instead I went with Dracovish. I've always been on the other side of Dracovish. I've always had to deal with it, so it seemed like the time to finally like pick it up myself and see what it can do. This thing honestly like very good. It's a water dragon type, which is hard to break if you don't have like a fairy dragon or a freeze Drymon. Water's weaknesses are entirely removed by dragon, which is great. And this thing with Vicious Rend, as you know, is destructive. It's banned from OU, so of course I wanted to pick this up and see how it does. Besides, I had a previous season, which I believe I didn't upload, where I fought it and beat it with Jellicent. And I wanted to see if I can do better at breaking the stuff that needs to be broken. This thing also has like a bunch of good coverage, honestly. Stuff like Bulldoze, Zen Headbutt / Psychic Fangs, Leech Life, Draco Meteor if I wanted. It's just like really strong. And now I had a little bit of a plan going into this. I said I didn't have a plan, but I had like 2 months I really wanted. The first one of those being Rillaboom. And Rillaboom is of course a great grassy surge setter, and it kind of pairs really well with Dracovish, because the things Dracovish is weak to, well actually the other way around. The things Rillaboom is weak to, Dracovish deals with pretty well. And grassy terrain recovery for Dracovish is really nice. And this thing can honestly in draft be very hard to deal with. It gets just enough like coverage to deal with things. It gets support moves. It gets let's see. It gets Frenzy Plant. Alright, it can run physical, it can run like defense and Spadef, and it can do a lot of things. And even though it's pure typing, it's like a really solid Pokemon, especially in like OU right now. So I'm really happy I picked this up. The second Pokemon I really wanted was Diancie Mega, and I always try to get like mons I haven't used in draft before, and I was really looking forward to using Diancie because it gets Mystical Fire now, and that helps it deal with so much more than it previously could. It's still like really solid versus most things with like Diamond Storm and Moonblast. We don't have Hidden Power, which is a shame, but it's still like it does a lot of damage. This thing gets Meteor Beam if I wanted to. Weathers it can set, and Magic Bounce of course being amazing here. There's a like a bunch of things this can do. Plus, the Yancy is one of those megas I just never like looked into much, because while it's really good, it's like so mainstream. I've always tried to look at like the lesser used megas, and the Yancy was like kind of too good for me to use. But now I'm using it, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Magic Bounce is really good for support. I can bounce wisps headed to Drakefish, stuff like that. The only thing is steel types, of course, which Drakefish deals with pretty decently. And Rillaboom also gets like superpower and stuff. But to deal with those steels and actually ice types, I didn't really have an ice type switch in. The Yancy can kind of eat hits from them. Has pretty good like SPDF and defense. But I went with Arcanine. Now, I wanted a fire type undergrassy terrain because it's just really good. And Arcanine is one of, because it's Gen 1, it's really versatile. It has like electric coverage for one type, Scorching Sand it gets now, Player of Outrage, Iron Head. One thing I'm really looking forward to is Burn Up. I can make this typeless, which is really cool. And its abilities are also really good. It has Intimidate, Flash Fire, and one that I never noticed, but Justified could be really cool if I have like a big dark type. I can run, for instance, versus Greninja, I can run Scarf Justified and click Wild Charge with boosted attack, which is cool. So yeah, Arcanine just seemed really solid. A lot of support, a lot of utility, a lot of bulk options mostly. Stuff like Solar Beam is also really solid. At this point I kind of wanted Celesteela, but as you're seeing, the picture isn't switching. Celesteela got sniped from me 2 picks before it was my turn to pick it. So I had to change plans mid draft, and I went with Gliscor. And this is another one of those bulky defense mons. I have a lot of bulk this season. Gliscor with, of course, Poison Heal, really solid. Hypercutter, Sandfell, not as much, but they're still useful. And this thing eats hits. It's still weak to Ice, of course, which I now have Arcanine for. But Gliscor is a ground flying type, is really hard to deal with, especially since I have switch-ins for both its weaknesses. It gets like a lot of coverage. It gets SD. It gets one thing I'm really looking forward to is like Facade, which is still really strong. It gets quite a bit of coverage, like Fire Fang and Ice Fang. I didn't see Thunder Fang. Does it get Thunder Fang? It does get Thunder Fang. Weathers, of course. Metal Claw, which could be interesting. Tailwind, really good support option. Knockoff. It has like a really diverse move pool, and it's gonna be really tough to break in a lot of cases. Let's see. After this, I needed a steel type because I really lost to like fairies. My best fairy switch in is Arcanine, and a lot of fairies do have something to deal with Arcanine. So I wanted an offensive threat to fairies, and at this point, to my surprise, Melmetal was still available. This thing was 20 points. Most 20 pointers were gone by rounds. This is round 6. Most of them were gone, but Melmetal was still there, and this thing is ridiculously strong. It's 143 attack, defense, and 135 HP, so it can like eat hits pretty well. The one thing is I have a lot of Fizz Def. SPDF is a bit of a problem to my team, but if I go on the offensive with this, it gets Earthquake, Facade, double Iron Bash, of course, which is its big thing. 30% chance to make them flinch, Iron Fist boosted, gets Darkest Lariat, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch. So many strong moves, and it's like bulky enough to eat any hit, any physical hit at least. Like stuff like Flamethrower is a bit of a problem, but I do have Arcanine. Fighting can be a problem, but I have Gliscor, and so I have like switch-ins to almost every attack headed this way. So this seemed like a very good like click buttons mon on my team. This thing gets Solar Beam. Why does it get Solar Beam? Just like its move pool is pretty small, but it does what it does really well. So it just seemed like a very fun pick to choose. And at this point I reached like 97 of my 120 points. So I had to like cut it short a bit with the last few months. So I went with Skuntank. Skuntank gave me a Psychic/Ghost answer, which I really needed. This thing is like really bulky, which is good, and it has like decent like support and special moves, and it's another one of those versatile mons that you don't really expect to be that versatile. Stuff like Snarl and Burning Jealousy could be really interesting this season. It's a Defogger, which is also pretty big. Haze. I can run Memento in this and set up with one of my previous mons. And this is a poison type, which is also very good because, again, fairies are still pretty annoying to deal with. Most fairies have something for Melmetal and Arcanine, and especially in draft, that's a big problem. So this can be very good. Also, Aftermath could come in really clutch in some matches, because I just get to chip away at things. I wanted a normal type, and I went with Audino, because this thing gets Wish support. And that's, for a team like mine, that's like Dracovish and Rillaboom and Melmetal don't really have a solid way of recovering. Arcanine has a Morning Sun, Gliscor has Roost of course, but a lot of my mons that are hit hard don't have a form of recovery. Wish could be very, very good. This thing is also just like really bulky, has a lot of support options. Healing Wish could be very, very good. Encore, we have Yawn. A lot of special attacks, surprisingly, which could be interesting someday, but I'll have to see when that comes in handy. This just seemed like a very good, because this thing is only 5 points, this was very worth the investment. And at this point I had 10 points left, so I decided to go with a mon, because as you know, Kellyan is also in this draft. He drafted Mega Gallade, and Gallade has two types I still needed. So I decided to choose it, because while Gallade is primarily a physical attacker, 125 attack, it also has like good SPDF, and because it stems from Ralts and Curlia, it has a ton of support moves and special moves to its pool. Stuff like Wisp can come in really, really handy. This is also a Wish passer. Trick is handy, Magic Coat, Memento. A bunch of really good physical attacks like Triple Axle and Earthquake and Fire Punch. This thing is like surprisingly, it's like Hawlucha levels of surprisingly useful. Hawlucha always runs Unburdened Sweeper, but if you look at its move pool, it has like all these support moves, like I believe it gets Ally Switch actually. Let me grab it here. It gets Baton Pass, it gets Body Press, Ally Switch, like I said, Attract, Entrainment, which is cool, stuff like that. And that's kind of what Gallade is too. Gallade has all these like interesting, can be useful moves that you don't really see often. This thing can teleport. Whoa, that's cool. And I'm really looking forward to use this in like all kinds of different roles. It's gonna be really interesting. And that's kind of my draft here. And the amount of power that's in this is like, I went very heavily physical offense, which in itself isn't really bad. It can be some trouble with like physical walls, but I should have enough pressure to break that. And it looks like a really interesting team to use, like very different than I'm used to. My first match is this Wednesday, and I'm gonna record that and upload it in my schedule, so look forward to that. And with that, I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.